Good evening, Drew.
Whoa, that is a really late add to the doc. Uh, we're gonna.
Do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I feel like that was not. Not
No.
only was that not on the doc, it is in the present tense. So let's start there.
Yeah. So we had a fun little. I mean, let me start by saying everything is fine.
Okay.
There's nothing, no danger. But we're sitting down. Me, the wife, the kids. We're eating some dinner. We're eating some pizza, some za. And granted, we made this all of ourselves, right? But it is probably 40 minutes after I have turned off the oven. Okay. So the oven was on, but it's about 40 minutes afterwards. And we're sitting there and we're finishing up dinner. We're watching some TV because, we're Americans. We watch TV when we eat dinner. And all of the smoke alarms in our house just start going off, just berserk.
Now, wait a minute. Hold on. Important clarification. Do you have, good old fashioned American smoke alarms, or you got the Nest where it's like warning, like where it starts talking?
Nope. They're just beeping at us.
Okay.
They're just beeping, and it's a newer house, so there's one smoke detector on every floor. That is also our carbon monoxide detector.
Right.
But they're all wired together, right? So one starts going off, they all start going crazy.
It's a feature.
It's a feature, not a bug. So, we're immediately like, my wife's like, okay, kids, just go get in the car. We'll turn the car on. You can, the car's sitting in the driveway. Just go out in the car. And, I'm doing the basic thing of well, I don't smell any smoke. Don't smell any smoke. Looking around, just making sure that sanity check. Nothing in my house is actually on fire, right? And everything was fine. So we start thinking well, what if it's carbon monoxide? These things just will not stop going off. So, we did what any sensible person would do at that point. We called the fire department. And literally, as we're on the phone with the fire department, they stop going off. Literally, my wife is just starting to talk to them on the phone, and everything goes to silent. But the fire department was really nice. They said, you know what, we'll send some people out. We'll do a sanity check. We'll check for carbon monoxide. We'll just walk around the house, make sure everything is absolutely fine. And they did that, and the firefighters were nice gentlemen and very polite. And my house is not on fire, so everything is back to normal. They have not gone off for, that was probably around 7:00 this evening.
Well, so what was it?
Beats me.
Was it something in your oven? Maybe there was something stuck on the inside, or
it must have been. I didn't smell smoke in the kitchen, but I don't know whether something just just a whiff of smoke just worked its way upstairs or something and set one of them off. But who knows? They were very polite and they said, hey, if it happens again, just give us another call and we'll come back out. And who knows?
Yeah.
So
it's funny. I've heard you've been to my house, so you know how this goes. So I live in we're not allowed to call them condos. I think technically they're called attached homes. So I share one wall with a neighbor, not even a whole wall, a part of a wall. And there's been times where I have heard, where I can hear it the most is in the basement, just because of the way the foundations are set up. But I have heard their smoke detectors go off from time to time.
Yep.
And that's something that really freaks me out. Is if my house catches on fire, their house is going to catch on fire, right? It's
right, exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
And I know that people that live in apartments and especially here in Dublin, where they built all those new upper class apartments that are high rises, I'm pretty sure they pour concrete for each unit to contain fires and stuff like that. And I'm sure we have some.
at least slow them down or something.
Yeah, and I'm sure we have some sort of firewall between our two houses, but to me, I think, I mean, obviously, having a fire can be it can be crazy, right? And I've had nightmares about being on fire or being near fire that is things that I like are on fire.
It turns out a lot of my stuff is flammable.
Yeah,
so
all the stuff I really like could easily catch on fire.
Yep.
And I have messed with low voltage electronics that have caught on fire because I'm really bad at reading voltage charts. So I've had a few brushes with, and of course, right. My thing was the last big scare I had here was I was working on a project that I was using a multicolored LED. So it was like an addressable thing.
Okay.
And I had it all wired up and I was testing it and I kept noticing that after a few tests, they would just stop working. And I thought, these things were like a penny each. So I'm sure they're just garbage. So I finished building a prototype on my workbench in the back cellar where it's concrete and that's like where all the magic happens. The dungeon, as I call it. And I took it out into the finished part of my basement and had it kind of sprawl out on the floor as I was assembling it into a case that I had 3D printed. Well, one of the wires got loose. So I took it back in the back cellar, I resoldered it, brought it back out, and then connected it to power. And as soon as I turned it on, the LED got really bright and then continued to get brighter until it just burst into flames on my carpet, right? So it thankfully it just like scorched it a little bit and I was able to kind of clean it up. You can't really tell where it happened. So that was scary. Like that was the first time that I felt like that could have gone a lot worse. So that project has been officially scrapped.
The captain who was talking to us as the rest of the firefighters are walking through their house with weird instruments, doing measurements and whatnot, doing science. He was saying that like every once in a while, like it doesn't happen so much in newer houses, but older houses, like he can kind of tell when there's like a brownout or kind of like a dip in the voltage. Because like an entire neighborhood's smoke detectors will go off at once and they'll get like a phone call from everybody. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So they probably had all kinds of cool gauges and
they did. They did. I mean they came in like ready for anything, man. They're fully dressed, just ready to go, walking around the house just with this weird, it looked like it kind of looked like like the thing he was holding kind of looked like a multimeter if you ever like did something like that to like check current, but it had like this weird, it almost looked like it had like a toilet snake on the end. So like a weird combination of a toilet snake and a multimeter that he was holding, and he was just walking around like sticking it in corners and places, and he went downstairs. I assume it was a carbon monoxide detector. I have to assume that's what it was. Just going through and it probably also checks for natural gas leaks and all that kind of stuff they have to worry about.
Yeah.
But clean bill of health and
the kids are okay and everybody's kind of settled and calmed down.
Yeah. My one of my dogs, she just she's a Havanese, so she's not as big as like our Yorkies, right? But she's still a small dog, and I've never heard her howl, but this is the first time she just like everything's going off, and she's just like, nope.
Yeah,
I'm pissed.
High pitch beeping is definitely something that triggers Rocky, so I can totally sympathize on that. Well, I'm glad everything's okay. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Testament to your professionalism that you still wanted to record tonight.
No, it's fine. I mean, there's always a chance they could go off again, and I mean that would be for some very interesting audio. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, I'm here for it.
Yeah. So everyone, look how long this podcast is. If it's like 32 minutes, you know what's coming up.
Well, so this must have just happened before we started recording, then.
It was around 7:00, so a couple hours ago.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was in here editing this document for tonight's show right around 7 o'clock, and I closed it down to go do something upstairs, and I opened this back up. Literally, how long have we been recording now? 10 minutes, and
10 minutes.
I saw Paul, nice firefighters this evening. I was like, well, that's going right to the top of the list. Don't bury the lead.
Oh, no. Oh.
Okay. Yeah, so a little bit of interesting podcast topics tonight.
Okay.
If you're not a nerd like us, you're probably not going to like any of this. But I'm gonna go ahead and tee this one up, and you're probably gonna laugh at me because I'm like way late to this party, but I have sort of seen the light, and it's time we sort of let people know. Especially people that I think I travel in some circles with, that if they're not already doing this, they need to start. So in my job, I get a lot of exposure to a lot of different things. Paul knew me, as the DBA formerly known as Drew Virgil, and who went and did cool automation stuff with SQL Server and troubleshooted queries and did cool DBA stuff. I did a lot of speaking in the community about it, and SQL Server will always have a special place in my heart. But I have sort of graduated away from that, and I would say that the two things I spend a lot of time doing these days are data engineering, where SQL Server just becomes a source or a destination these days. It isn't my end-all, be-all. / I do a lot of automation, CI/CD, and deployment type stuff in Azure.
Okay.
So between those two things, that's probably 80 to 85% of the work I get involved in. And brother, business is booming because those particular skill sets are in very high demand right now. There are not a lot of people that ask for my help or my colleagues' help these days for just SQL Server stuff. There's thanks to very dedicated community members and people who love this stuff. Shout out to Eric Darling here. These guys and gals are rock stars. They have blogs. And if you're having problems with your query performance, it's usually slow storage or parameter sniffing. Like literally, it's one of those two things all the time. And how you go about solving that is you can open your checkbook or you can keep kicking that can down the road. Literally, that's what it is, right? So... Anyway.
It turns out. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to just take a moment here, and I wanted to give a shout out to a utility that I was aware of well before I changed jobs and I started doing things, but it's something that I'm almost relying on a daily basis these days, and that's Postman. And Paul, I'm sure that you have used Postman, and there are
Absolutely.
alternatives to Postman, right?
Are there really?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, yeah, they are.
There are, but Postman is the best. So why don't you'll be able to do better justice to this to me, and I'll get into the reasons why I like Postman and why it's important for our modern work, as I'm going to call it. So why don't you tell people what Postman is? So
Postman is at its heart my first thought was to say it is a tool to help you like test and validate like web APIs, but it's really simpler than that. Postman is a graphical user interface on top of HTTP, the hypertext protocol that makes the internet work. So it kind of simulates what your browser could do, but gives you a lot more control over all the little fiddly bits of HTTP, all the dark, all the stuff under the covers that people don't care about. But it turns out developers care a lot about this stuff because, like, not only can we use HTTP to serve up web pages and, dynamic apps and stuff like that, but it's also used to expose programmatic APIs. So a lot of that stuff is, a lot of it is you're sending like a text payload formatted in this format, typically JSON, which is like a JavaScript lots of curly braces and quotes and colons and this just very terse description. You send that to some API and you get stuff back. But Postman makes things like authentication really easy. It makes editing those payloads and every little bit of HTTP you can get in there and really control. And it's beyond that, it's got some really interesting collaboration tools and even some like testing tools. So like you can work on, they call them, I think, collections. Yeah, you can work. Yeah,
environments,
they call
workspaces.
Yeah. You can share that with another person or a team and work on them together. Or one thing that like I personally use them, like obviously like what I do, like we're not developers, but we work closely with them. Is sometimes a developer will give us a set of Postman calls that we can use to basically say, hey, sanity check, does this actually work?
Right.
Yep.
Right. And yeah, that's a perfect summation of it. And here's the thing. It's free. Right? It's free. And even at the free tier, you can have what are called shared requests in Postman where you can share things, right? And then if you're a small team or even a large team, it's not super expensive to have a plan that gives you access to like things like single sign-on and other stuff, right?
Right.
So you could spend money on Postman if you want, but if you're in a small development shop or you're one of two people who actually does API calls or API testing, like it is a tool that should absolutely be in everybody's tool belt. Let's just period, full stop. I don't really care what you do in IT. I promise you probably have a need for Postman. And prior to me discovering how powerful Postman can be for what I consider to be its killer feature, and that is for almost every major product or service, there is probably a GitHub repo somewhere with a series of JSON files in it that you can import into Postman that have all the endpoints for the application or the service or the whatever already built in. All the parameters are defined. All the authentication flows are already set up. They're constructed in such a way that you literally go into the environment and you can set the values, and all of these different API requests or HTTP requests, HTTPS, whatever, they're parameterized. There's an expression language built into this where it's already set up. So if you're like me and you're building some form of automation that has to call an API, you sort of use this for your testing. It shows you not only what API endpoint you need to call and what it needs to look like. If you are posting or putting or updating or whatever your action is, you can see a sample request body. You should know what your payload needs to look like if you're going to be uploading files or posting content somewhere or getting content.
I use it a lot. I love it for just there's a new API that I have to integrate with. It's just kind of great for exploring it and like pushing on it and seeing how it responds before you start doing the automation. So you can figure this stuff out and like you go, oh, my automation has to make these 5 API calls in this order, and I know that because here are my 5 Postman requests, and you know exactly what it looks like, and what if you need to pass certain headers or all that wonderful stuff. Yeah, it's a great tool.
Yeah. And every sort of modern web-based application these days has some form of API.
Pretty much.
So if you're using, I don't know, Azure or ServiceNow or Jira or Azure DevOps or you take your pick, GitHub, right? There are APIs for doing everything, and there will come a time where you will be looking to automate something, and you are going to have to understand what it takes to call an API. And Postman helps you really sort of prove out your workflows. Now, it's not the end-all be-all because you need to take those requests and then in your language of choice translate that into something that can call an API wait for a response, process a response, and then do something with the response, right? So you still have to do.
But Postman will even help you with that now, because you can, for a lot of common programming languages, you can export the request into like it does like PowerShell and Node and like C#, and I'm sure those are the only things I care about these days. But yeah, and it's not always perfect, and sometimes code's a little ugly, but it gets you like 75% of the way there.
Yeah. And again, like you said, it is the perfect tool for sort of poking at APIs to see what the correct format you have to request it in and what the response is going to be. So I say all this in service of is that, Azure is just one giant API. Literally everything you do, point and clicky in the UI can be scripted at an API level. And Postman is sort of a critical tool for not only testing how this works, if you need to request a new resource, if you need to update a resource, if you need to get the status of a resource, if you need to authenticate to a resource, if you need to, I could go on and on, right? But but that is a giant API. And yes, I know I can go to the Azure portal and I can deploy a SQL database, or I could deploy an Azure function. But understanding sort of how you can do that without having to use the portal is really, really important. And being able to get the status of one of your services or get some sort of property on something, like when was the last time I had a database backup? How can I obtain that programmatically? And here's the thing. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, Drew, I don't want to go learn how to program in Postman and do API calls. I have things like the Azure CLI, or I have PowerShell. Well, listen, Buttercup, like those are just wrappers around API calls. Like, I hate to break it to you. And you might not always be on a system that can have PowerShell installed, to have the commandlets that have these API calls set up for you, or you're not able to install the Azure CLI. So you might be in a situation where you have to create curl requests to these things. Yeah. So
sometimes,
you're stuck.
And it turns out Postman will export the request in curl or wget,
right?
And you can just paste it into your shell and be done.
Yeah. Yep. So if you're playing the sysadmin adventure of you are stuck in ye dungeon of SSH. And you need to make an API call. Possible exits are curl or exit. Like, what are you gonna do, right? So, you're gonna find yourself in that situation. And I will say that specific to Azure, the thing that trips a lot of people up is I think people realize that there are robust APIs behind not only all of the services that Azure offer, but Azure itself, like the management plane of Azure. I think the thing that trips up a lot of people is authentication. It uses OAuth flow. So, because all your API requests have to be authenticated for good reason, prove who you are and that you can do this thing. So a lot of times that means that you need to have some kind of service principal or some sort of credentials that you can use to first get what is called an access token. And then that access token becomes your sort of authentication key for your API request. That part can be a little bit crazy because you're just trying to do one thing and you want to make one API call, but you first have to make another API call to get this one thing that lets you make the next API call, and that's kind of life, right? That's kind of how that works. So I think a lot of people get turned off by that, but if you could understand that OAuth flow and how to make API calls, you can absolutely level up your experience with so many different things. Yeah,
and like you said, there's a lot of people use Postman, so there's a lot of good examples and a lot of good repos out there how to use APIs or things you can just import and start plugging things into. So, and that's the beautiful thing about Postman as well, is it supports a lot of these different authentication flows, and you can just say, hey, like before you call one of these APIs, call this other API first, get your token, put that token into here in this request, and then it just all works. Anyone in IT, it should be something that you at least are sort of familiar with. It's indispensable.
Yeah. And even if, I'm speaking in general Azure terms, right? But I almost would put money on the fact that there are people in many different roles in IT, from developers to system administrators to database administrators to network admins. I promise you, something you work with has an API. Everything's an API. I'm an API, right? At this point, you can't prove that I'm not. I'm just Turing complete. But it's you need to understand how this makes your life better, right? What you can truly do, because again, if you're gonna stomp your feet and say, well, I'm just gonna use the PowerShell commandlets, or I'm just gonna use Azure CLI to do this, great. But what if there's something that the API could give you that somebody didn't write a commandlet for?
Right.
So I mean, that's it, right? There are always going to be use cases that kind of fall outside of what is generally available to you. So I'm saying all of this, right? The whole reason this comes up is that there are people who will sort of say, oh, I'm not a developer, I don't need to know how APIs work. And that drives me up a wall, right? For a lot of reasons. Number one thing that I just don't have a lot of patience for is people who don't want to learn something. They want to stay in their lane. And while I can understand that, I don't understand how people don't want to constantly be learning. Like I see that as a learning opportunity. 1% better every day. Like you're doing something and you're getting better. So that whole concept of not wanting to do that is extremely foreign to me. So I have a hard time with that. But I get it. Not everybody's comfortable taking on a new thing, and people just assume API means programming, and I can't.
Well, the P does stand for programming.
Yeah,
so.
I know, but I can't. I'm not going to lie to you and say that if you truly want to automate this, you sort of have to incorporate understanding how an API works into some sort of scripting or programming flow. Like, just yes, but again, that could be part of the learning. That is something you could show growth with, and that is something that you should embrace.
Yep.
But it just drives me crazy when I see people not doing that, or people who dismiss that as a skill that they don't need. And I just wish I could grab them and shake them forcibly and say, no.
Well, you could. I mean, probably only once.
Yeah,
but,
I think that would be mostly frowned upon by my employer.
Yeah, right.
And not just because of the COVID protocols, but it's like there's a lot of meat there, and I just wish I could tell people this without sounding harsh, without sounding like I'm being disrespectful. But it is a skill that I think people are not willing to embrace when, sooner or later you're going to have to do this. And if it comes down to you or somebody else who can, what do you say to that?
Absolutely.
So it just drives me. It just drives me kind of mad. It's maddening because it's so friggin' powerful. I mean, I wish I could go into specifics on some of the things that I've been working on, but I can't. And I'm not saying that to be coy. It's just that whole API aspect, that some of the things that we're doing and some of the things that I will be able to talk about in the near future, even things like some of the services that we offer, like cognitive services in Azure, like those are APIs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're looking to tap into some really powerful AI and ML algorithms that are already built for you because you have more money than time, like, go call these APIs. Oh, what? You don't know how? Shame on you. So I don't know. Right. Am I being? What do you think? Am I being unreasonable about this? Be honest.
No, I mean, there's enough. Geez, I'm gonna cut this awkward silence. There's so much, like in your IT, there's just this pool of software that surrounds you, right? Whether it's something like, like Azure or AWS, or, your off-the-shelf vendor billing system, or your custom developed app, or all this stuff. Like, the one thing that's in common about, like you said, like so many of these things is that seems to be everything is moving towards HTTP, often this, REST based APIs, and they're literally just everywhere. And like Azure has a CLI, and sometimes there's other integrations, but not everything has that. Like some things is just, here's a Swagger endpoint with a bunch of documentation for our APIs. figure it out. And well, like every API is different. Once you learn the basics of how to use Postman and some of these, like the concept count is relatively low. The things you have to understand to make this work. And once you do that, like you have a tool that you can use for any API. Like the world opens up to you when you kind of just embrace this fact that, at the end of the day, there's just a bunch of HTTP requests going to services and parsing results and doing like it opens up so much for you. So I think it's just a good, at least a basic understanding of how this kind of stuff works. Cause like you said, sometimes there is no alternative. It's API or get the fuck out. So.
Right. That's exactly it. Is you will be in that position. I promise you. You may not be there today, but you will be there. So take this to mean that at a minimum, if you don't already have it, go get Postman. It's free. They don't sponsor us. We don't have sponsors because no one listens to us and no one's going to waste money on us. It's not that we don't want them. It's just that we. It's a tool. It's free. You should have it. It runs on, I think, all major platforms. Just go get it. Okay. And find something you're using today, whether it's a cloud provider or some service, even an internal API. Maybe your company has internal APIs.
I think, yep, I was right. Like Postman has some resources at learning.postman.com that will get you, in the get started, it has you sending. Postman has a bunch of really rudimentary APIs that you can send stuff to, and they walk you through just sending different HTTP requests and using the tool. So there you go, learning.postman.com.
Yeah,
do it.
Yeah, do it. Bet you won't.
All
right.
You know what? If you do it and you learn something, reach out, let us know.
Yeah,
we'll make you a platinum bestie.
Yeah,
how about that?
we will put you in the Doing Their Best podcast Ring of Honor, and you'll get something. I don't know.
Something.
Yeah,
something.
when we do our 100th episode, we will honor our Ring of Honor members, whatever that means.
Whatever that
means. But don't be surprised if you end up hating whatever we do for you.
Yeah, we're gonna give you something. You're not gonna like it.
You're gonna get something, and you're gonna like it, whether you like it or not.
Oh,
that should be our slogan. You'll like it whether you like it or not. Either that or shove it in your pee hole.
That's catchy. I like that.
What? Shove it in your pee hole?
Shove it in your pee hole. Yeah. That's. I think that's the slogan. It's going to take us to the next level.
Shove it in your pee hole.
I do. Yeah. I think title.
I'm sure they'll shove it in their pee holes. How's that? That can't be. There's no way that
we can't
do that. No, not in a title.
No.
And the markdown in the show notes, maybe.
Yeah, we can't do that.
No, we can't do that. I don't think we can even use like words like shove and hole.
It'd have to be the right context.
Yeah.
But not together. Not together, no.
Maybe shovel it in your TP hole? Like shovel instead of shove? How could we game the algorithm?
I don't know.
We're gonna end up on a list of podcasts like that. You're gonna be looking for 10 hours ASMR squeaky transmission, and we're gonna end up in that same list, right? Like you're just trying to fall asleep or get your rocks off listening to squeaky transmissions, and all of a sudden you hear us.
You know what? I wouldn't even be surprised if there was AMSR.
Okay, hang on.
Podcasts.
Hang on. Opening a new podcast or opening a new window. We're gonna go over to YouTube. I'm going anonymous mode because I don't want this in my history. Hang on. YouTube. Okay. I'm gonna go to YouTube and I'm gonna search box. I'm just gonna type 10 hours ASMR. Okay. These are not bad. So my top search results are 10 hours ASMR no talking.
Okay.
How does that work? 10 hours ASMR sleep.
They're just making mouth noises.
Yeah, 10. Okay, hold on. Here you go. 10 hours ASMR mouth noises. 10 hours ASMR whispering. 10 hours ASMR eating. 10 hours ASMR food, slime, tapping, triggers, rain, and massage. 10 hours ASMR squishy. Squishy. 10 hours ASMR squishy.
But where's where's the ASMR for men? Where's the engine noises or guns firing? Or...
ASMR 10 hours. 99.99% of you will fall asleep. No talking, low light. 10 hours of intense relaxation. This woman is using a makeup brush on a very, very generous microphone windsock.
Ooh.
Addictive tapping ASMR bakery.
How did we end up here?
What is this? What? Oh, this is tapping. What? Hold on. I have to watch an ad because I'm in.
Does ASMR do anything for you?
Yes.
Like, does it? I
have very interesting taste.
Okay. I mean, I don't begrudge anybody, and I get like kind of makes your senses get all tingly and whatnot, but it just drives me up.
I'm not putting this in show notes, but you have just hold on. You have to do this.
Okay. All right.
It just.
I think you do need to put it in the show notes. Hold on. Okay, let's see.
Fast forward through that a little bit.
All right, here we go.
There's a lot going on in this video, so we're gonna do a real time reaction video here.
There is okay. Okay, so I've watched 10 seconds. I'm gonna pause and let you know what's going on. There's a young woman wearing AirPods, not the Pros, the regular ones. You can tell by the stems.
Very. I think it needs to be said that for an ASMR video, she's dressed to impress.
Yes, very low cut blouse, and the camera angle is aimed in a way to accentuate that fact. I think that's what we're going for. And she's whispering. She's whispering to me. Measuring your face ASMR. Okay. She rolled her R's. That was interesting. Like but in a whisper. She's gonna tap. She's gonna tap with no talking. Okay. Starts now. So she's got a plastic jar full of paper clips, and she is taking her fingernails and tapping it on the plastic.
Oh my God.
And moving the jar to different positions.
Oh my God, dude.
Closer.
I'm gonna pre.
Closer and further away from the microphone. Okay, so I'm curious, does she change props?
Yep.
I'm going to go to 11 minutes in. Okay, so I skipped to 11 minutes in, and she is now doing it on a glass. I can't tell, but I believe the glass has a picture of the wife from Bob's Burgers on it. I don't know if that changes the acoustics or not. Okay, I'm going to skip to 20 minutes. Oh, I don't like the tapping on the glass at all. Nope. Okay, now we're 20 minutes in, and she's doing it to a book. A book. It's the Cat in the Hat.
Okay, all right.
So I'm not sure if that changes the acoustics.
Breaking news.
Okay.
I put a second link in the show notes. Now I need you to do me. Okay. I need you to do me a very big favor here. Okay.
Okay.
Now, without saying what it is.
I'm afraid to click on it.
It's okay.
Okay.
But,
okay. All right.
But what I need you to do is I need you to fast forward to. Let me see if I can find it. Hang on. I'll tell you exactly the time code. Okay, hang on. Okay, hold on. I gotta get the exact time code. Okay. I need you to go to 21. Okay. 2105. Okay.
Okay, I'm there.
Okay, so you're at 2105. Okay. I want you to hit play now. Now, Paul.
Okay.
I want you to listen to this. Don't say what it is, but I want you to take this next little bit of this video, take the audio, and put it at the end of our podcast. Okay. Okay. A special treat for the listeners that make it all the way through. All right, go.
So make sure you put the time code in the show notes because I will forget. Okay. Uh, okay. Okay. uh,
Does that do anything for you?
it's, well, I mean, can I give the premise of the video?
No.
Okay.
There's going to be a bonus ASMR video in the show notes, and you're going to get a little snippet of it at the end of the show.
Okay. There's two things. There's two. I'm not going to say what the video is, but there are two facts about this video I want you to be aware of. Okay. This video was published on YouTube on January 28, 2021.
Yep.
That is like a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
And this video has more than 1 million views.
More listeners than we will ever have. And when you see the title, and if you actually watch this thing, how?
I have to.
We're in the wrong business, my friend.
God damn. Okay, the comments are a little thirsty.
Oh.
There's someone has put some timestamps on some things. Okay, I'm happy for these people. Lots of timestamps. So if you can get your exact whatever it is that floats your boat, you can find it and go right to the timestamp.
POV.
Multiple people have submitted timestamps.
POV. You're scrolling through the comments to be filled with positivity.
Oh, geez.
Oh, wow. Oh, and you know what? Like, if you click on her name, ooh,
okay.
Ooh, there's one with Q-tips. That shit might hit different.
Nope. Playing. Wow. Yep. She's got one with hair.
She's all in.
Wow.
A school nurse lice check.
Wow. 1.44 million subscribers.
School nurse lice check ASMR. 11 million views. That's going in the show notes. Oh my god!
Wow.
Okay, yeah, I'm out. We got to eject from this topic.
That's been ASMR Corner.
Fuck, man. Whew. Okay. Anyway, getting back on track. That was an interesting diversion. Well,
we've been talking for 43 minutes.
That's a little palate cleanser. That's a palate cleanser for all the nerd shit.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, this was not planned. Like this.
No.
That's my favorite part of us recording is you never really know where we're gonna go. Okay. Challenge to the listeners: send us your best ASMR videos. Again, you'll be inducted into the Doing Their Best Ring of Honor if you send us something that really gets us.
And you're gonna like it.
Shove it in your pee hole. All right. One more nerd topic here real quick. And this is strictly for Azure users. I'm sure other things in other cloud providers exist, but I need to call this out specifically. Listen, nerds, if you're doing stuff in Azure and you're not using Managed Identity, you are doing it wrong. Paul, have you done anything with Managed Identity in Azure?
I have no idea.
All right. So
bleep bloop, I'm not technical.
Oh, that's true. You're a middle manager now. All right. Well, here's the thing though. I think you are going to want to take an interest in this. Okay. So here's the deal. Paul, as a modern IT professional, what should be one of the most important things you think about when you're developing a new application or managing people who are developing new applications? And don't say budget.
One thing? I mean, there's lots of things to take an advantage to take.
That's right, security.
It was gonna be on my fucking list.
Okay.
Yes, security.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Everything.
You got me all riled up with the ASMR shit.
Well, I got you, buddy. Got you, fuckers. Anyway, wow, we really got to save this. So here's the thing. Like we were saying before, we were talking about API stuff and how stuff's authenticated, and you want to keep the bad people out of the stuff that you want to only let the good people in. A lot of that is done through authorization and authentication. Again, just using databases as an example, there's lots of different ways you can authenticate to a database today. So if you're working on premises, you can obviously do things like SQL authentication. You could do, Kerberos or Active Directory authentication to connect to the SQL databases. Well, when you start moving things to the cloud, that paradigm changes a little bit, because things like Active Directory authentication, while they still exist, they work greatly different. And one of the biggest challenges that I've worked with people working with Azure is, how do you take sort of that authentication story for your applications and sort of modernize it for the Azure platform? Well, depending on the service that you're working with, there's a couple different ways you can authenticate. A lot of things have access keys. So things like storage accounts, you can use like an access key to sort of access those things. You can use service principals that actually have a username and password. But again, the problem with all of these are that you have to sort of administer and cycle and keep those things up to date. In the old Active Directory days, we had managed service accounts that you couldn't sign in as those users.
I'm familiar with those. Yes.
Yeah, you couldn't sign in with those. They didn't technically have a password. Well, managed identities are sort of the Azure version of that. And essentially what it is when you build an application or certain services in Azure can assume managed identities, what you essentially do is, instead of granting service principals access to these different, storage accounts, databases, queues, whatever, you find the service that has a managed identity, and you literally tell it, I want this service to have access to this particular storage account. And what that means is that anytime that particular service reaches out, there is no credentials to be had. The service either has access or it doesn't. And all the authentication flow for how it requests an access token and how it accesses these things, it's all handled for you. So for instance, just using an example here, let's say I deploy a new app on Azure. Well, app services can have what are called managed, either system or user managed identities. And when you set that up, what that essentially does is that registers your application essentially as a user or a service account in your Azure Active Directory tenant. And now, when that's enabled, I can go to something like a storage account, like maybe this app service needs to write logs or read files or do something. When I go and I give that particular service or that new identity access to the storage account, the libraries that I use to authenticate to the service can take advantage of that. And we don't need to store any sort of username or password in any sort of environment variables or app configs or anything. As long as the libraries you are using, and trust me, this extends well beyond .NET. You can use this in Python and Go and JavaScript as well. You can just directly go into that service account and everything will be, into that storage account using the identity of that service, and it all sort of happens for you. So there's those service principals to maintain. There's no credentials to recycle. They're extremely secure. You can't impersonate them. And one of the more underrated versions of this is that if you have virtual machines in Azure, you can actually assign a managed identity to the virtual machine, and anything that would authenticate to Azure on that virtual machine, whether it be, PowerShell or Azure CLI, it can assume the identity of the machine.
That's
right?
cool.
Yeah. It's something. If you're using Azure today and you're sort of struggling with that authentication story, number one, make sure you're looking at managed identities. Now, I'm not going to say that they're perfect, right? There may be instances where you don't want to use a managed identity. There's also the local development aspect of this to take into consideration, because a lot of our modern authentication libraries for working with Azure AD, if you're going to use managed identities, there's a couple things you have to take in consideration when you're developing locally. Not complete blockers or showstoppers, just things to be aware of. But if you're working in Azure and you're not looking at this, I would extremely advise you to start looking at it. And of course, if you have questions or you disagree with me or you think I'm full of shit, just tweet me or whatever, and I'll tell you why you're wrong. But it's something that you should be looking at. And I'm doing my due diligence to my friend Paul here, who I think works with people who do a lot of work in Azure still, at least I hope. They should be looking at this if they're not already.
I'm gonna do a little bit of research tomorrow morning and pass it along to the people that I think need to know about it.
Look at that.
So thank you, Drew.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Follow up at the end of the show.
Hey, follow up could be anywhere. This show's nuts. I just wanted to give a quick update. Last show I talked about my kind of woes with my Raspberry Pi, and I had the thought about turning it into a internet-based digital music player. I have taken first things first. I made a little bit of an oopsie.
Okay.
So we had talked about a particular product from Hi-Fi Berry, basically a Raspberry Pi DAC. It's a little hat. It goes on the GPIO pins and gives your Raspberry Pi, a little bit more of a audio oomph. So I am a spoiled American who is so used to buying something on the internet, primarily from Amazon, but even other places. And, you get a tracking number and it comes in a few days. Well, I decided that I was going to purchase, this Raspberry Pi DAC and a case to go with it from the Hi-Fi Berry website directly. They're a Swedish company, which is fine. But about 4 days after I purchased it, I got an email saying, "Hey, we shipped it. We shipped it.
We swipped it.
We swipped it. That's how Sweden's call their shipping. We shipped it. It's going by whatever the Swedish version of the post office is. You want a tracking number? F you won't get one."
Oh, cool.
It usually takes a couple of weeks, but sometimes it's a lot more. So, hey, if you don't see it in a month, let us know.
Oh.
And so that I got that email and I was like, oh, what did I do? And then that little voice in my head went, you should have just looked to see if it was available on Amazon. And I Googled it, and sure enough, Hi-Fi Berry has an Amazon store, and I could have had it in literally the next day after I ordered it. But so I don't have that part yet. But I have gotten some speakers. I've installed Volumio, which is the software that I've tried some few other things. Volumio is by far, they're all fiddly and they're all kind of ugly in their own way, but Volumio has the features that I want. It connects with Spotify. It can play Spotify directly. It also supports Spotify Connect. So if you ever use that little feature in Spotify to play things to other devices, the Raspberry Pi shows up there. It supports AirPlay. It's great. Everything is working well. The audio does sound a little flat, which I'm sure is just like everyone says that the DAC on the Raspberry Pi, the digital audio converter, the thing that turns digital audio into analog signals, is kind of crummy, but it absolutely works. So if you have some speakers and a Raspberry Pi doing absolutely nothing, I think you could do a lot worse than putting Volumio on there and turning it into a little music player.
Like I said on the last podcast, and I haven't done anything with it yet, is I haven't really done anything with my Raspberry Pi. I was looking for another little project.
Yep.
So that turns it into like a streaming server, right?
Yeah, so it basically just runs a little web server, so you can pull it up in a browser. If you have like digital audio files, MP3s, FLACs on a NAS, or if you want to put it on a thumb drive and put it in there, you can. It does all of that. So like I do have some audio files on my Synology, though it's music I really don't listen to anymore. But I hook that all up. It connects to Spotify, so you can see all your Spotify playlists and albums there. It just, like I said, it supports AirPlay. So if I just want to, send whatever I'm listening to on my phone or my podcast to my speakers, I can just, hit the little AirPlay sharing thing and select it, and boom, it's playing. So yeah, Volumio does exactly all the features that I want. I'm not going to say it's kind of ugly, but what I will say is it feels like it was designed by a developer.
Oh,
and that's not a compliment. But it's functional, and you really only have to be in there when you're like selecting something to listen to or changing tracks. Other than that, it kind of just disappears. But yeah, it's good. So far, I'm happy with it. I'll report back when my Hi-Fi Berry DAC add-on actually arrives. If it arrives, who knows? So I'll follow back up and let everyone know how I feel about that and how it sounds.
Okay, I'm very excited to hear that. I would like to learn more.
Yep.
Oh, buddy, how do we do this thing?
I think, yeah. I'm. You know what, folks? Not every episode is gold. Sometimes you get a 20-minute diversion into AMSR YouTube videos. And you know what I just realized, Drew? You may have opened up a private browsing window, but you know who certainly did not? Me.
Do you share your YouTube account with anybody?
No, it's just mine. But let's just say the algorithm's already like, I got you, fam. I know what you need. Oh.
Wow.
That's okay. That's okay. I'll just have to be like, nope, don't want to see that video. Probably hundreds of times until I stop seeing them. Oh. Let's wrap this one up, Drew.
Yeah, let's do it. Where can people find us?
Hey, heard of the internet? We're on that. Doingtheirbest.com. We're on Twitter at doingbestpod. You can reach me on Twitter at Paul Baylor. Where can we find you, Drew?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Pittsburgh, PITTFURG.
I did look in Apple Podcasts, whatever the heck they call it now. I almost said iTunes. That dated me. Some of you are actually giving us 5-star reviews, and I appreciate it very much.
Really?
So,
is that a thing?
Yeah. I mean, not a ton, but we don't have a ton of listeners.
How do we? Can I see that on my crappy PC and like on my Apple thing? Is there?
I have no idea.
Oh shit! Hold on. I got my phone right here. Hang on. I got to see this. Sure, doing there. Oh, that's not.
Yeah, and like we're so unpopular we don't show up in the autocomplete. So
all right, listen, besties, if you want to be in the Ring of Honor, if you want to be on the Doing Their Best Ring of Honor, you're going to have to go to iTunes, and you're going to have to give us more ratings. Yep. Oh wow, we have six whole ratings.
Six 5-star ratings.
Hey, so. If you're out there, and you're one of the six people that gave us a 5-star rating, you're in the Ring of Honor. You're officially in our Ring of Honor. I'm reading. We only have 2 reviews, and
2 written reviews.
Yeah, yes. One of them is from Mike Gadd, and one's from Gene. So thanks, guys.
The highlight of Mike Gadd's is the title. It's
not
the title reads "Not Diarrhea People." As far as you know, Mike.
As far as you know.
I know this could be the episode that gets you to stop listening.
Yeah, if you're still listening after this episode, congratulations, you're in the Doing Their Best Ring of Honor.
All right, everybody.
See ya.
Thanks for listening.
Enjoy that bonus.
Oh yeah.